From the bleachers to the bar, this is the Home Runs and Handshakes podcast. Welcome in, friends. Yes, indeed, this is episode 9 of Home Runs and Handshakes. It's the Javier Baez episode, or if you want to go a little bit further back in time, the Scott Service episode. Or, Frank, do you have any other number 9s you want to throw in?
Hank Sauer.
There you go. I like that one. I think Gabby Hartnett wore number 9 for a little bit for the Cubs as well. I would have to check the baseball.
Hartnett wore 2.
That. However, a lot of guys wore that, but the important thing here is what's going on in the here and now, and that is because the Chicago Cubs, once again, Frank, are tied for first place in the National League Central with the Milwaukee Brewers, who came perilously close to getting swept by the Miami Marlins this weekend up there at the Artist formerly known as Miller Park. So for all the weeping and gnashing of teeth that Cubs fans had when they lost 2 out of 3 to the Royals this week, they end the week and begin this all too critical series tied with the Milwaukee Brewers in the National League Central. I guess first things first, Frank, we have to look at this week just kind of overall, the 3-3 record, kind of the way that the Cubs limped into this White Sox series, lost that first game against the Southsiders. All vibes were pointing way down, knowing also that we had to deal with Sunday, the bullpen game and stuff. But Cubs come back, have their offense come to life yesterday, Saturday against the White Sox, especially that 8th inning. Loved the way they manufactured some runs. And then you had Sunday's game where PCA continued to get extra base hits. Matt Shaw continued to rip the ball. Nico Horner had a good game. And Ben Brown freaking shoved, dude. What a crazy, crazy weekend on the South Side. The Cubs take 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. And again, tied with the Milwaukee Brewers atop the NL Central. I'll say I'm mildly disappointed, but I have to say yet again with the Cubs, it's an instance of they were down bad and found a way to scrape together 2 consecutive victories. And I think that is just the story of this team so far.
I really like the way Brown integrated his changeup today. You know, he's been leaning so heavily on the fastball and the curveball. And, you know, it's great that he throws 97, but 97 down the dick is not getting the job done in the National League. The curveball is only good when he's got the fastball working and he can actually spot it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the home run Benintendi hit in the first inning, and that was just an absolute center cut fastball.
Yep.
You or I could have just as easily put that in the seats. But then he started spotting it better, and the curveball was working. And like I said, integrating that changeup and the changeup was working, and having that effective third pitch makes Ben Brown a big league pitcher.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes him a big league starter, I think. If you only have the 2 pitches, you could probably be a reliever, but I mean, you cannot be a starter with only 2 pitches. I don't care how good those 2 pitches are.
Justin Steele might want to disagree with you.
That's fine. Justin Steele is a unicorn, dude. I am going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say I don't think Ben Brown is a unicorn. Okay,
no. Generally speaking, if all you've got is a fastball and curve, and your name isn't Nolan Ryan or Sandy Koufax, you're in trouble.
Were you surprised that the Cubs went back to Ben Brown as a strictly starter in this game, or did you think they were going to go with the opener again?
Well, I think they were fine with him starting just because nobody's going to. It's the White Sox.
Well, they gave up 12 runs on Friday, lest we forget, and that was Shota Imanaga getting absolutely beaten all over the ballpark. That was very reminiscent last season of that Milwaukee game where he just got absolutely shelled at AmFam Field. Like, it was definitely the bad Shota, and we don't see that very often.
Yeah, and you could have looked at he had the low velocity, and normally you'd say, okay, maybe it was a cold gun, except the White Sox were just jumping all over him. He was just throwing salad up there.
Yeah, it was not his best command that he's ever had. Again, it was very reminiscent of that Milwaukee game where he just had no command on the fastball. And if he's not commanding that thing, it's just going to be center cut right there for guys to hit. And they were jumping all over it throughout the game. So I'm not sure if it's like something to be concerned about for the future, if he was just like trying to dial it back a little bit to get the control going. I know that sometimes an analogy here, when I play golf, you kind of dial back a little bit just to try to get a fairway finder, just to get the ball in play. Maybe there was a little bit of play at that where he was like in the bullpen before the game or something and just could not get the ball located where he wanted to. Maybe that's something that happened with that.
Yeah, one game you don't worry about. If it happens this week against Milwaukee, then you got to take a longer look at it. But I expect he'll bounce back. He's Shota. He's a lefty. It's Milwaukee. He'll be good.
I think you know what, if we're going to talk about two of the three Cubs starting pitchers this weekend against the White Sox, I think we have to talk about the Saturday starting pitcher, which was Cade Horton, who Frank has been really, really good in the month of July, like a 1.5-ish ERA, 3 starts where he hasn't given up any earned runs, 2 quality starts, including Saturday. He really seems to be kind of figuring some things out. And I was really impressed with the way that he was attacking the White Sox hitters. He was inducing a lot of weak contact during that game. One of his best starts, if not his best start with the Cubs on Saturday.
Yeah, I think right now he's probably got the best overall stuff of any of the starting pitchers on the Cubs. He still is figuring out like when to throw which pitch at what time, and he's getting much better at it, and the results were there. And he's had 2 of his last 3 starts, 3 of his last 4.
Mm-hmm.
He's been out there where the Cubs have not been scoring runs.
Yeah.
And he's kept them in the game. And
definitely the case against Boston. I mean, you were going up against Garrett Crochet, so there was that. But, man, Saturday.
A couple starts before that, he was up against Skeens.
Yeah, Saturday just felt like a really weird game for the Cubs where they could not get anything going. And then all of a sudden, Ian Happ hits a home run, and that's kind of what lifts the lid on that thing. And then, like I said, you manufacture some late runs and you get, kind of an easy win that you maybe weren't expecting. But I'm glad the offense finally picked him up in that game, because if anybody had deserved it, he just absolutely shoved. And he did it on a day where they really wanted to try to save their bullpen because they knew they were potentially going to have to go into it again on Sunday against the White Sox. And Cade Horton did exactly what he needed to do. It was a really remarkable performance from that perspective as well.
Yeah. The one thing I will say that I'd never want Cade Horton to ever do again is get on a microphone during a Cubs game.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, you do have a little name there for yourself, Cade Horton monotone.
He was Cade Horton playing the hits from you from 2 to 6 in the morning. And here's a block of Donovan.
You know what? That's a good reference. I will give you a lot of credit for that one. But yeah, this is a guy that you and I had very high hopes for when they called him up, and we were kind of hoping he would slowly start to show progress, and he certainly has for the Cubs this season. And I think that these last few outings for him have just been very indicative of the kind of ceiling that he's got. And I'm still not trying to get like overly amped up about like what his future is with the Cubs. But I mean, if you top half of the rotation guy at the very least, and I know he doesn't have the gaudy strikeout numbers, but I've really liked his stuff lately. It's playing really well. And again, inducing that weak contact, even if he's not striking guys out.
Yeah, and listening to him talk during the game today, I was like, well, that's what makes him such a good pitcher, is he's got a pulse rate of about 35.
Yeah. He's not a red ass at all, which is, I know we praise the red asses on the Cubs. He's definitely not one of them.
Yeah, but, you can have a John Lester, you can have a Jake Arrieta, but you got to have a Kyle Hendricks in there too.
You absolutely do.
And
yeah. I was just
maybe that's just
how astonished I am that his ERA is down to 3.67 on the season. That is a very respectable number in a rookie season, especially some of the competition he's ended up facing.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's not going in the Milwaukee series, but I would have been perfectly fine if he was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to get to the pitching matchups in that series because there are a couple of absolute barn burners coming up in that one. But I think we're going to go ahead, stick with the White Sox series just a little bit more because there are several guys who had really good series at the plate. And you and I had kind of talked about it a little bit during the game where the top of the order outside of PCA wasn't necessarily doing much. I thought that Michael Busch and Seiya Suzuki would have been better off going up there with like pool noodles today instead of bats. Just not a great game for them. But freaking Nico Horner and Matt Shaw at the bottom of that lineup doing some serious damage, and especially Shaw has a hit in every single game he's played in since the All-Star breaks, got 4 home runs since the break. We may be seeing a little bit of a breakout for a Matt Shaw, a little bit of Miguel Amaya-ish of the second half of the season, or you think
he's definitely made adjustments through the year. I mean, you look at the beginning of the season, that big leg kick is gone.
Yep.
And right now he looks so unbelievably confident and comfortable when he walks up to the plate.
Mm-hmm. Very reminiscent of the way he was looking at AAA when he was smacking home after his demotion earlier in the year.
Yeah, he's looking like he's even he's going to go through some cold snaps because every player does, but he definitely looks much more comfortable and confident. And I think it's one of these things where because he's ridden out what he's had to ride out, and his weighted runs created plus is up to 90 now, I think.
Yeah, which is not terrible. Like, it's getting into slightly more respectable territory for sure.
Yeah, if he keeps this up, he's going to be, he'll be up over 100 in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, which we're going to have to obviously talk about kind of his status with the Cubs, given what they're kind of looking at heading into the trade deadline. But I did mention Nico Horner, and I think that this is probably a good time about 12 minutes into the podcast where we can bring up his impacts on the game on Sunday. Had a really nice day at the plate. And then also, Frank, this clip of him, the little deke that he did on Lenyn Sosa during the game today. Just got to get your opinion on this. And then one other thing. Let's take a look at it.
And a sky-high pop-up. Nico lets it hit him. They'll fire to third.
Wow, smart baseball. / dumb baseball by the Sox. But a brilliant play by Nico Horner.
I am obsessed with that call by Deshays. Smart baseball by the Cubs. Dumb baseball by the Sox. It literally was both of those things.
That call reminded me so much of the Javi Baez play where he stole first base.
Oh, against the Pirates? Yeah.
Against the Pirates. Because it starts off, you just hear Deshays like really low say, "This is so good." Because he could see what was about to unfold.
He could see that the Pirates just went completely like baseball brain dead in that moment. Like, which is exactly what Lenyn Sosa did. Like, you're taught from Little League, like, if there's an infield fly rule, you better be damn sure that ball is like a mile away from that.
It has to get kicked away from everyone.
Yeah, which it didn't. And I'm like, no, you're not fast enough to do that, Lenyn. And by the way, Nico Horner has won Gold Gloves for a reason. That guy's got an arm, and he's very accurate when he throws the baseball. Like, a nice deke by him. Also, dumb moment for Lenyn Sosa. Not my favorite thing I've ever seen the White Sox do. And speaking of little miscues and boners and such, how about Ian Happ absolutely trucking Colson Montgomery today? Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
Yeah, that gave me
Standing the baseline there and obstruct the base runner's ability to get to the base.
Ian Happ lowering his shoulder, laying the...
Just straight up out of Cincinnati, baby. That's what they do with them Bearcats. As that play developed, I was like, man, this is taking a while for them to get that rundown going. And then all of a sudden I saw the catcher just hold. I'm like, oh, Colson Montgomery's about to get smacked. And he did. Absolutely. Trucks, dude. I was like, that's absolutely going to happen. Colson's just like, please throw me the ball. Please throw me the ball. Throw me the damn ball. Please do it. Like, such a crazy, crazy moment that was in that game.
And again, Nico Horner. The whole play started with Nico Horner getting caught in a rundown.
And staying in that rundown, too.
Staying in the rundown long enough for Happ to get...
I was going to say, there is absolutely an art to that when you get into a rundown and keeping that thing going. And the Cubs did a beautiful job there to steal a run, which ended up being super critical in that game because you ended up giving up that 3-run homer to Benintendi, who I don't know why he turned into Superman all of a sudden against the Cubs. But you know what? It wasn't enough because, as you said, Frank, they have Gasolina throwing in that 9th inning.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you one last question about that. Which of those moments was more satisfying to you as a fan? Horner kind of deking out Lenyn Sosa, or Ian Happ going full Kyle Farnsworth on Colson Montgomery?
Probably the Ian Happ thing, but neither one showed that. Both of them actually showed the White Sox aren't exactly the most cerebral team.
I didn't know Matt Eberflus started coaching them.
Yeah, Yeah, they were not playing smart baseball today, and that's on the coaches. That's stuff. I mean, in the heat of the moment, you can forget how to baseball. I mean, it happens to everybody, and it'll
Yes.
happen at the big league level too.
Hmm.
But the coaches have to be, they have to drill it into these guys. Do not, with Souza, do not run on that in that situation. And um, for Montgomery, it's like don't stand in the baseline without the ball. That's another thing you're taught in Little League. If you stand in the baseline without the ball, the runner, I mean, Hap could have just bumped into him and gotten home plate. I mean, he trucked him, which was fun,
Hmm.
but bumping
That
into
was
him would have gotten the job done too.
I'm honestly a little bit surprised that the White Sox did not get a little bit angrier about that. I thought for sure there was
Yeah.
a little bit of hooting and hollering, and instead all they were like is, "Hey, he should be out." It's like, no, you should be going over there and like threatening to throw hands with Ian Happ like that.
Yeah.
Imagine if they had tried to do that to like somebody like Matt Shaw, the Cubs. They would have been out on the top step of the dugout being like, "Oh, you guys want to play like this, huh?" Like I didn't even think about it until right now. That wasn't a dirty play, I don't think. Do you?
No, not at all. He was in the base path.
I agree wholeheartedly. Well,
That was Hal McRae baseball.
isn't blinding us to the logic of that situation. Okay, we have talked about the weekend that was. Now it is time to talk about the week that's going to be. There are two massive headlines coming up this week. The first of which involves the Milwaukee Brewers, who, as I said, almost got swept by the Miami Marlins, did pull out Sunday's game. They are tied atop the standings with the Chicago Cubs as we go into a massive series up there in Milwaukee. And Frank, I mentioned earlier in the show, just the absolutely staggering pitching matchups we're going to get. How about this one? You got Matthew Boyd going up against Jacob Mizorowski, a battle of all-stars on Monday. Can't wait to see what the Cubs do against him. Probably strike out a lot. And then you have Colin Ray and Quinn Priester on Tuesday. And then you've got Shota Imanaga and Freddie Peralta on Wednesday. As I said, three absolute barn burner pitching matchups. You know damn well Shota is going to be up for that game. He's going to be looking to show that game against the White Sox was a fluke. Colin Ray didn't exactly light the world on fire his last outing either, but I think with the performances those three have put up this season, it is going to be a very interesting week up in Milwaukee.
Yep, you buy your ticket, you get the whole seat, but you're only going to need the edge of it.
I was shocked. Did you see the resale value for tickets for that series? If you're a Cubs fan and you can play hooky from work this week, I think the minimum get-in price for the game tomorrow was like $28, and that's to see Matthew Boyd and Jacob Mizorowski. I would definitely pay that money to go up to Milwaukee. I was staggered when I saw those prices.
I know the prices are good, and are their games even sellouts?
We'll see. Like I'd imagine they're going to be close if they're not, but for a $28 ticket, I'm kind of doubting it's going to be sold out fully.
Yeah. Well, also the question is what does $28 get you? Are you up by the Euchre statue?
Hey, don't knock the Euchre statue, man. Although I did get a bit of vertigo when I went up and visited that on my maiden voyage to Milwaukee.
Yeah. You can actually go down to the concession stand and get an oxygen tank if you're up there.
Well, you know what? You eat all that, delicious sausage and drink all that Leinenkugels, you're probably going to need an oxygen tank by the end of that. I don't know, Frank. Like this series, I know everybody's going to be wanting the Cubs to go up there, win 2 out of 3, take the division lead, keep piling on with that, tiebreaker against the Brewers. I know they've got the 5 games left at Wrigley Field. The Cubs can potentially make some noise in, but I just think that you want to play 3 competitive games against this Brewers team who's been playing so well since the All-Star break. And you mentioned this about Miami. It's not like they're a bad team right now. They've been playing a lot better of late. And so I think that losing 2 out of 3 to them, it's easy to be like, it's the Marlins. But it's also indicative of just like the quality of competition the Brewers have had to face. And then just it's so hard to keep up that, winning way when you've won 10, 11 games in a row. It's a tough racket in baseball. And I just thought it was a great reminder of that this week.
Yeah. And, one of the things I was interested to see, and it hasn't happened, was, you texted today and let me know that in the Iowa game, Casey, Alcantara, and Long were all out of the lineup.
They all were.
And so I'm like, okay, so Hoyer's got something cooking.
Maybe.
to keep all three of those guys out of the lineup
Mhm.
on the same day. And I was actually wondering if Hoyer was going to pull off a trade like tonight, or maybe we get the announcement right after the game. Pardon me. And that would give the Cubs like that lift going into the series.
Well, I think that you've seen teams like the Diamondbacks have kind of started to go out there and start to make some moves. And the Braves made a move today. They traded for a starting pitcher. Are they buyers or sellers? Like, I'm legitimately like confused on what the Braves are trying to do right now.
Well, I think the Braves are just kind of looking at the fact that this year's kind of a wash because of injuries, and they'll be back. But they've had so many starting pitcher injuries. They just need starting pitching.
Yeah. I'm sure Fetty's like, wait, who the hell am I going to? I thought I'd be going to a contender potentially.
Yeah.
Well, we can kind of go over some of these kind of rumors that have been floating around there today, since we kind of brought up the trade deadline. That again is just the kind of like the nexus point. Everything is kind of swirling about that on Thursday. The Cubs are off on Thursday, which is good. So you'll get through the Milwaukee series, and then you'll hit that deadline. You'd imagine they're probably going to try to get a move done, especially with teams like the Diamondbacks kind of picking out the lane that they're going to be in. And I'm going to cite your favorite insider to start out, just because I want to see, whether or not you're going to get riled up. But Bob Nightingale of USA Today had a couple of interesting ones. He said the Cubs would be willing to trade Owen Casey in a deal for Mitch Keller from the Pirates. He also said that they've kicked the tires on Merrill Kelly from the Arizona Diamondbacks. And obviously we know the Cubs are looking at several Diamondbacks players, including Eugenio Suarez. But when you saw Owen Casey potentially being floated in Mitch Keller trade, what was the reaction of a Frank Nova?
That they would throw a parade in Pittsburgh. I mean, Keller's fine. He's a good pitcher, but you got to look at Owen Casey two ways. Owen Casey is the Cubs' top prospect.
Yes.
Owen Casey is also not in the top 30 prospects.
No.
So while he's the best the Cubs have got, he's not the guy who's going to bring you. You can't trade him even up for you. Maybe you can get him. Maybe you can do him for Eugenio Suarez, because Suarez is a free agent at the end of the year. You're not going to get a pitcher, a guy with like MacKenzie Gore is the example I'm going to use, because that's the one I've heard floated.
I was going to mention that because there's actually a thought that I have on that, but please continue.
Like when I saw that all three of those guys were sitting today, my first thought was, oh my God, they're getting Gore.
Yep. I had the same thought. And I was like, why isn't Ballesteros in that group? I would have thought that maybe he would have been involved in that mix, but he played today for the Iowa Cubs.
Yeah. And, I think that's part of the thing is that, if the Nationals are dangling MacKenzie Gore, a lot of teams are going to call.
As they should. Right. Well, I also do not think that a package of just prospects is getting that deal done for Owen Casey either, right?
You mean MacKenzie Gore?
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, that is
That's
what
right.
I meant. Yep.
Well,
See,
I think
I had a thought that I shared with Claire, which would be that the Nationals would want the Cubs to throw in Cade Horton.
Yeah, that's not happening. I mean,
I doubt it as well, but it's something. I think it's a conversation starter at the very least. I don't think they're doing it for like a Ben Brown. I think that if they want big league ready pitching, I think it's going to be him.
Yeah, or if you're giving him Casey and another of the Cubs higher ranked prospects, you can give him a Jordan Wicks.
That might work, or a Javier. Well, Javier Assad still is injured, but I don't think that's going to do it.
I don't. When you're looking to make trades, truthfully, nobody's off the table.
No,
I mean everyone's. But there's some guys like, you would have to offer up an awful lot to get the Cubs. For instance, Pete Crow-Armstrong. Yeah, sure. If somebody calls with a good enough offer for Pete Crow-Armstrong, you make the move. But that would have to be a mind-boggling offer.
It would have to be the craziest trade we've seen the Cubs pull off at a deadline. I don't think it would happen.
Right. So realistically, you're not going to trade Pete Crow-Armstrong.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel the same way about Cade Horton, where they would just have to have their doors blown off. And MacKenzie Gore, if the Nationals are shopping MacKenzie Gore, you could look at Cade Horton and you kind of say, okay, well, how much better does MacKenzie Gore make us if we don't have Cade Horton?
Yeah. I think that's an accurate way to phrase that question.
I mean, in Moneyball, they say you're not getting players, you're getting wins. And that's kind of where you are. It's like, how many more wins in a season do you get with MacKenzie Gore instead of Cade Horton now?
Even with that contract control, yeah.
Right. You got a lot more control with Cade Horton.
You sure do, but you also have a little bit longer track record, and I think a higher ceiling with MacKenzie Gore, though. That's I think ultimately what kind of led me to ask that question.
Yeah. I would not trade Cade Horton for MacKenzie Gore.
Well, what it's worth, Jeff Passan says he thinks that Gore would be a perfect fit for the Cubs. Bob Nightingale says it's not going to happen. So who do you believe in that situation, Frank? Do you think this is something the Nats are actively considering, or do you think this is something that it's like, nah, we'll just float it out there and see what happens?
They can float it out there and see what happens. And if they don't get a good offer, they'll just wait until the winter.
Yeah. And I think that it's a lot more likely to me the Cubs go after somebody like a Mitch Keller, a Merrill Kelly. I'm just, again, miss me with Zach Allen. I do not want to deal with that. I know he has a good track record. He's been abysmal this season. I don't want to deal with that right now. And the Cubs don't have time to just wait around for him to figure anything out either.
Yeah, no, they need somebody, if they're going to trade for a starting pitcher, which they better.
Yeah.
He's got to be somebody they can plug into the lineup this weekend.
Yep, I agree. And Gore, I think Gore pitched on Saturday, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So it would be a little bit of time before they'd be able to get him out there again.
Yeah, and Gore's also never pitched in a pennant race. So
no, he is not. I also have still seen Seth Lugo potentially an option, Adrian Hauser still potentially an option for the Cubs, and then the ever-present Sandy Alcantara. If you had to guess right now, Frank, which of those starting pitchers do you think the Cubs end up landing at the deadline? Because I do think they're going to land at least one.
Don't forget Cabrera.
That is also true. Cannot forget Cabrera.
I guess
Joe Ryan from the Twins too. Again, don't rule anybody out.
Joe Ryan's a guy. He might be a guy. He'd be a guy I would definitely trade Casey for.
Absolutely.
I'd trade Casey for Ryan. I'd trade Casey for Cabrera. You might even see a bigger deal where the Cubs send a bunch of guys for Alcantara and Cabrera.
Definitely a thought that I've had. I've also had the thought that the Cubs could package Merrill Kelly with Eugenio Suarez, and then you get other guys involved, like your Owen Casey's of the world.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't give up Casey for Suarez just because you don't want to give up. Right now, you
want to give up your Kyle Tucker insurance, basically.
That's the exact phrase I was going to use is Kyle Tucker insurance. So you don't want to give that up for a guy who's only going to be playing for the Cubs for 2 months. Right. 2 months, and then whatever part of the postseason there is.
Is there any hesitance on your part to go out and add Suarez with how Matt Shaw's been hitting the last 10 games?
I would be perfectly fine bringing Suarez. I mean, Matt Shaw's been good. Matt Shaw's not Eugenio Suarez, especially 2025 Eugenio Suarez. And it does two things. A, it gives you a big right-handed power bat in the Cubs lineup, and B, you can go through the rest of the year knowing you're not going to be facing Eugenio Suarez.
Yeah, especially if he goes and gets that. Can you imagine, Frank, that 5-game series against the Brewers at Wrigley if Suarez is on the freaking Brewers? I think
he's going to hit 20 home runs.
Walk into traffic, man. It would just be awful.
So, yeah, I think that could be one of those things, too. I mean, in the past, I've seen the Cubs go out and get guys like, Jeff Blauser and Richie Hebner, guys who just killed the Cubs.
Mm-hmm.
And they go out and get them. He's always killed us, so let's go get him. And it's varying degrees of success, to be kind. I mean, the Cub killed one of the two big Cub killers in the 70s were Mike Schmidt and Dave Kingman. They got one, and he worked out. He was great until he wore out his welcome.
Absolutely.
But Suarez is a guy, you bring him in for 2 months and just let him go nuts. And, what you can do as long as Matt Shaw's, you can't make Matt Shaw part of the deal because you're going to tell Shaw, look, we love what you got going on. You've been a big help to this team.
Yep.
But, we're in it to win it
It's a rare
now.
opportunity to get a guy like that who's literally top 10 in so many offensive categories in baseball right now. This is a win now situation. You're not telling Matt Shaw we don't believe in you in 2026. You're just telling him, let's go get a top 10 hitter in baseball and get you a World Series ring.
Right. And not even Matt Shaw would say, I'll start Matt Shaw.
I completely.
Suarez.
I think Matt Shaw is enough of a competitor. He wants to start, but he also knows damn well what that means. And for him, it means getting some still primo opportunities. I think you would see him playing plenty of DH in that situation. You'd see him still play third base and have Suarez DH at times. Like, it gives the Cubs a lot of flexibility off their bench and probably gives them an excuse to get rid of John Birdie or Justin Turner, for God's sake.
Well, if they got Suarez, Justin Turner, they would just take Turner's nameplate off the locker and put Suarez's on while Turner was still sitting there.
Au revoir, truck nuts. Au revoir.
But the other thing that a move like that would do, and again, it's only Suarez that enables you to do this, is Shaw can then give Swanson some days off. He can give Nico some days off.
Yep. It's something. It's the cascading effects you have to think about. And again, it gives Seiya Suzuki, who, by the way, I think is like 2 of 30 since he hit that home run against Boston, the first game after the trade deadline, or the All-Star break. He has been really struggling of late. Gives you opportunities to get him some time off. I know Ian Happ had a pretty solid weekend against the White Sox, but still, numbers are not what Ian Happ numbers are supposed to be. Kyle Tucker, I think, has like 2 or 3 extra base hits in his last 12 games. He's not been hitting the ball very hard lately. Like, there are guys you definitely can give some time off to if you go out and make moves as we approach the trade deadline. And I do think the Cubs need to be looking, obviously, at third base, of course. Suarez would be a massive upgrade. You just have to look in general at bats because you're at least going to get those guys some days off.
Yeah, because if you want to win a championship, you need to have depth. And right now the Cubs have none.
No, and obviously injuries have not helped them at all when it comes to their, pitching, but for their offense, the depth has just never been there the entire season. They really, outside of catcher, haven't really had depth to speak of at all.
Yeah, and, Miguel Amaya is going to start doing his we're going to get to rehab in a second, I know, but we're getting the impending return of Miguel Amaya, so that's going to be the end of Reese McGuire, but Reese McGuire has been good in the role that he's played.
It's not a bad idea to carry a third catcher on this roster right now with how well Reese McGuire has played in limited time.
Yeah, and that gives you a DH option. It also gives you another bat on the bench.
And like you said, you have that positional versatility with Nico Horner and then with Matt Shaw as well, because it just kind of enables you to plug them in at different spots and give guys time off. And so you're not really missing anything if you lose a Birdie or a Justin Turner in that situation.
Yeah, and you saw in 2016 is the gold standard for the Cubs, and in 2016 they ran 3 catchers.
Yes, they did. And I'm not saying they'll do that this time, but they certainly have that option if they want it, because you're competitive with any of the 3 of them behind the plate and at the plate.
Yeah, and any of them could play first base as well as Justin Turner.
That is 100% accurate. I think that's maybe the only thing giving the Cubs a little bit of pause right now is who plays first base in those situations where Craig Counsell's just literally I cannot have Michael Busch facing a lefty today. This absolutely cannot happen. I put Matt Shaw there and just call it a day, man. That is exactly what I would do.
A 5'9" first baseman.
You know what? Hey, you know what? Hey, what are they going to do with Moises Ballesteros? That dude is 5'7" on a good day, Frank.
I don't think Moises Ballesteros is looking down the chute at a very long Cubs tenure.
Listen, I am not going to have you bad-mouthing my short king, Frank. This is not going to happen. I'm not allowing this. This is my show too, damn it.
Hey.
You know what? This might be the first time I've ever tried to just be hey, you shut your mouth, Frank Nova. I think we can mark that down 35 minutes into the 9th episode of this show. I think we've gone pretty good without me getting all bent out of shape about something. But I have an irrational love for Moises Ballesteros. What can I say?
Oh, as a fat guy myself, I have nothing but
There
love
it
for.
is.
I have
Yes.
nothing but love for fat guys, but
Let us sing the praises of our short fat king Moises Ballesteros. Yeah.
and guys like him and Alejandro Kirk and some of these other guys.
I love Alejandro.
Anytime they hit a ball in the gap, I just read a guy, look at him go. It's the same joy John Madden would get when an offensive lineman would run in a fumble.
I mean, when Vinny Pasquantino was playing against the Cubs, I found it very hard to be mad that he was doing well just because, like, Pasquatch is an epic big guy nickname. It's
it
epic,
is.
dude. I will also say, long live Dan Vogelbach. I will never forget you either, buddy.
Oh, God. I loved him so much.
Oh,
And
I did too.
there was one glorious summer where both he and Kyle Schwarber were at Kane County.
Oh, prodigious girth and slugging ability at Kane County.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
man.
I mean,
I'm
even
overdue to go to a game there.
What's that?
I'm overdue to go to a game there. I haven't been to a Kane County game yet this season.
I was going to say, do they still do that great pork chop sandwich there?
I do not recall having it. I did have like one too many beers when I went, though. That was probably a mistake on my part. But I seem to recall somebody bringing that up. I don't think I had it, though. You know what has great pork tenderloin sandwiches? Go to an Indianapolis Indians game. Holy moly. That's some good eating down there.
Yeah, well, it's different because the Kane County is a barbecued pork chop sandwich.
Okay.
If they still make it, and they should, I cannot recommend that highly enough.
Yeah. So
that's big league food.
I apologize to Claire for derailing the conversation to talk about our Fat King. We do need to still talk about bullpen before we get to kind of what the Cubs have in terms of their rehabbing guys. We have several different pitchers the Cubs have been potentially linked with. A lot of closers, Frank. I'm kind of interested to get your take on this. You do have, let me see if I can say his name right, Joan Duran from the Twins. You have Raisel Iglesias from the Braves also potentially on the list. And then Kyle Finnegan from the Washington Nationals, all of whom the Cubs have been kind of reportedly interested in. And I know we are unabashed lovers of Daniel Palencia on this here podcast, but if you're giving the Cubs an opportunity to bring in a veteran flame-throwing guy who has closing experience, you want to mix and match those two, like 8th and 9th inning, however you want to do it. I'm 1,000% down for that. Give me all of the depth, man.
Yeah, and even if you have games where one goes in the 8th and one goes in the 9th, it shortens the game.
It sure does.
All of a sudden, other teams only have 21 outs.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you saw in 2016. They brought in Aroldis Chapman, and you still had Hector Rondon and Pedro Strop. They shortened games considerably with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it goes.
I should have mentioned they also have been rumored to be interested in Emmanuel Clase from the Guardians as well. So that's gonna come with a little bit, I think, higher of a price tag. I think that it's gonna be tricky to get any of those closers, but it definitely shows where the Cubs' priorities are at the deadline, because not only do they want to go get more starting pitching depth, which they absolutely need to do, they also, like you said, Frank, are really looking at trying to shorten some games and to probably take some of those higher leverage situations away from guys like Chris Flexen and Drew Pomeranz.
Yeah, I mean, Flexen and Pomeranz have been better than we expected them to be.
Found gold, dude. Found gold, absolutely.
But, better than you expected them to be, and we need you to get outs in the 8th inning during a pennant race are two entirely different universes.
Yep, precisely. And again, as good as guys like, Ryan Brazier have been as well, and Caleb Thielbar, if they're going to get slid back an inning because you go out and get a closer type guy, there's nothing wrong with that sentence at all. I think that's absolutely something the Cubs need to consider doing.
Yeah, and, this is something Craig Counsell's had before with Devin Williams and Josh Hader.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's something I know he really wants it. He wants to have a bullpen that, where, you've just fought through 6 innings against Shota Imanaga, and it only gets harder.
Mm-hmm. And gets a lot faster, too, because you bring in guys like Palencia, and then if you go and get a guy like Duran, who I think can throw like 100 miles an hour, like that's really tough to do.
Yeah.
Making that kind of switch and approach, that is.
And what you can even do, depending on the game and the opponent, is you can have one go in the 7th and then bring out a Caleb Thielbar.
Yeah.
with that big curveball in the eighth, and then go back.
He looked filthy against the White Sox. I will say that too. Man, he had another good outing. He's had several recently where I've just been like, damn, dude, they might have something with this guy.
Oh, well, he's got a very unusual delivery, which throws hitters off anyway.
Funk is it is such an equalizer for a relief pitcher. Even if you don't have gas, if you've got funk, that's really tough to cope with for an inning.
Yeah, and he's got that curveball that and you're not used to relief pitchers having a curveball like
Not
that.
at all. Not like that.
Like relief pitchers, they're throwing gas. They've got a cutter that no one can hit, or a splitter that no one can hit. Just a good old fashioned, great big left-handed hook. It works.
Yeah, I also have to bring up, they also have apparently reached out to the Twins about Griffin Jax as well, which would be, that's one of those guys that he's got a really high ceiling as a reliever. And I've even heard rumblings that teams may look at trying to convert him back into a starter, kind of like a Garrett Crochet type situation. Sign me up for that if the Cubs want to make that kind of move. Again, I am all about these moves that are not only improving you for now, but also for the future, especially if you're mortgaging some of your top prospects to do it. That's definitely something, if I were the Cubs, I would strongly consider doing something like that too, if the Twins are willing to listen.
Yeah. And the Cubs certainly have prospects to shop.
Yes, they have quite a few of them. Yes.
And
they also have some big league ready depth potentially. If you start getting guys healthy, maybe you can kind of sprinkle those guys into trades as well. Although it's going to be really difficult to kind of tell how everybody's rehab is going. Are you ready to get into some of the MASH unit updates for the Cubs?
Yeah, let's roll.
All right. So you have a lot of guys who are heading to the Iowa Cubs right now. You've got Porter Hodge, who is in Iowa for a rehab assignment right now. You have Miguel Amaya apparently going to be with the Iowa Cubs on Tuesday for his rehab assignment. Javier Assad finally getting into the rehab action. He'll pitch again on Wednesday. And then finally, you've got Jameson Taillon, who's going to throw another bullpen session in Milwaukee this week, then likely heading to Iowa also on a rehab assignment. That's a lot of really, I don't want to say critical pieces for the Cubs, but extremely helpful pieces for them down the stretch, especially when you're talking about guys like Miguel Amaya, who was hitting the cover off the baseball earlier in the season. And then Jameson Taillon, who just lengthens out your rotation, gives you a lot more depth and options and flexibility out there in the bullpen too, because you can bump one of those guys down. These are really key ingredients for the Cubs. And if you get 1, 2, or 3 of those guys coming back and making a really solid impact, those are almost as good as trade deadline acquisitions at this point.
Yeah. Well, I will say I'm hoping that, in Jameson Taillon's time off, they took the home runs out of his arm.
Yeah, he's given up 18 or 19 this season, something like that.
A lot.
Yeah,
and Porter Hodge gave one up in Iowa Saturday.
Something's been off with him. We were kind of looking at him as being a potential 8th inning option when he came back the first time from injury, and he just didn't look like you noted it right away. The zip was not there on his fastball.
Yeah,
he wasn't really commanding at all, and it's not a good sign if he's already given up home runs in Iowa either. I know it's one potentially bad pitch, but still something that's going to give you a moment of pause for sure when you're talking about where he's going to kind of fit in this bullpen.
Yeah, and Javier Assad, I mean, I would not expect they're going to hand him the ball and start him in a pennant race.
Doubt it.
But if he's healthy and he's pitching the way he can pitch, he could be a guy that you can bring in to get 3 innings in a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, definitely backstop one of your pitchers. If you want to pull Colin Ray after 4 or 5 innings, that's a great way to go about it. Or if Ben Brown has to make another start, or again, they have that 5-game series coming up against the Brewers, you're going to have a doubleheader mixed in there. Give him a start during that kind of a series instead of a Chris Flexen. I think those are all really safe and smart options for them to do as a roster.
Yeah. And, I mean, they can't look ahead to the Brewers series in August yet.
No.
But the other thing we have to see is, again, who's here and who's not.
Yeah. Who do they acquire at the deadline and who they don't? That's there's so much uncertainty going on with that right now, and I would love it if they could make a move before that Brewers series this week and kind of get a guy in there to give them a little bit of a kick in the pants. But I know like there's been moves on the market, but it doesn't seem like the guys that the Cubs are necessarily looking at, those aren't really the guys who have been moved yet. And so I think that there's still kind of some waiting around to see what's going to end up happening there with that market.
Now, the other thing I was thinking of going back to MacKenzie Gore is if they're looking at Gore and Flanagan, again, that's something where if they put together a bundle of prospects for Gore and Flanagan, that changes the complexion of the team a lot.
A ton. God. And it maneuvers your bullpen around, your rotation around, your future rotation too, lest we forget, because Gore is under contract for such a long time. Like that changes calculus on a lot of different things, and I think addresses a lot of their needs. And I think it's why you're seeing such an aggressive push by the Cubs to go out and get a MacKenzie Gore or a Joe Ryan, maybe rather than just simply a rental player. I think that there's a reason why they keep getting connected with those guys, is because they're looking to leverage that prospect depth for guys who are really close to being big league ready. I mean, how many more minor league at-bats does Owen Casey really need, for example? I think that's kind of where the Cubs are at right now, is they're like, look, we basically can give you this major league ready bat and then some for whatever player that is. And I think that's why you've seen them kicking the tires more on guys who are established and guys who have, more importantly, that contract control left.
Yeah. And, the Cubs, it's funny because the one thing with Marquee is owned by the Ricketts family.
Yeah.
So when you hear something said on Marquee, it's coming from the offices.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been really, really quiet about Connor Nolan, which I think is kind of weird because he's been really pitching well in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why aren't they beating the drums on this guy? And I don't understand. Maybe I don't know why they'd want to keep him under wraps, but that seems to be what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got 9-3 record this season, 3.79 ERA. Very, very solid season with Iowa for sure. I think he's a guy that, you're definitely looking at probably wanting to see him have a little bit more control. I just looked at his walk rate. It's like 3.5 per 9 innings. It's been going up each year. You do kind of want to see that come down a little bit, but they do have a few pitchers floating around in their system that I think could end up making some impacts. And you saw how well they did with their draft class in terms of getting everybody signed, and they really went above slot for a few of those pitchers. Like, they really are high on some of those guys too. And so I do think that the Cubs are kind of looking to bridge that gap between where they're at right now and when those guys are going to start arriving, like the Jackson Wigginses of the world, etc.
Well, I mean, Wiggins, I'm surprised he hasn't gone to Iowa yet.
I'm genuinely shocked by that. I wonder if they're just waiting for the trade deadline. That felt like a move that would have been made already.
Well, maybe Connor Nolan goes in a trade. I don't know.
Maybe, you don't know.
But like they signed, I don't know if they signed all their draft picks, but they definitely got the top 10.
19 of 20, actually.
19 of 20.
I think it's like their 19th round pick they haven't signed yet.
All right. But it was
it doesn't matter. Yeah. That if he turns into something like whatever, he's 19th round pick. Like, we're not going to lose sleep over it.
Right. And they picked up a few free agents, but it was interesting because they went almost all pitchers. There's a few outfielders, one catcher, and one
not
third
a single
baseman.
shortstop, I will point out.
Because they're so loaded in the organization with international players at short and at second that they really don't need organizational depth at shortstop. Sure, if there was a shortstop there that they liked, they would have gotten him.
Yeah,
but the Arizona complex is full of 17 and 18-year-old shortstops from Colombia and Venezuela and the DR.
And thank God, like, guys like Christian Hernandez are finally starting to like put it together. And I know that like everybody's like, Christian, who? Like, that guy's been around forever. He's still only 21. Like, it's not like he's super old or anything like that. He just happened to sign when he was a baby. So Cubs, you got to.
This is part of the risk you take, though. Is they signed him? He was a baby, but now there's going to be a Rule 5 risk with him.
That is very, very true. And there's several of those guys that they're talking about potentially trading. You're going to end up having to either add to your 40-man roster or lose for nothing. So if you're going to end up trading those guys, you got to kind of have to get that done here before the deadline. So
that's how the Cubs got Kevin Alcantara way back in 2021.
Lest we forget. So we are 50 minutes into the podcast episode that we kind of talked about maybe being a little bit more abbreviated. I think that the trade rumors especially, I thought needed to be really well kind of thought out and fleshed out. Like I do think still, if I had to offer my prediction, I still think the Cubs go out and get a relief pitcher. Not going to say which one. I think it's kind of silly to like prognosticate exact names. But the thing that I really do think they are going to do, I think they're going to get a cost-controlled starting pitcher from somebody. And I think that in their dream scenario, it's either going to be Joe Ryan or it's going to be MacKenzie Gore. And I think that they have the prospect capital to make that happen. And more importantly, I think they have the desire to make that happen because it's going to take a lot to get either of those guys away from either of those teams. I think the Cubs are going to try to make it happen. And I think that they may do that at the expense of not getting Eugenio Suarez. I think they're going to prioritize trying to get that cost-controlled starting pitching.
Yeah, because I mean, they're going to sit there and look. They look at their bats right now and their starting lineup, and a few guys are scuffling at the moment, but they'll come out of it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it would be great to get Suarez, and it would be great to not have to worry about Suarez lurking out there somewhere.
Thank God the Yankees got Ryan McMahon instead of him.
It's funny because I was like, oh, they got Ryan McMahon. I guess that he's their third baseman. And then you go to Ryan McMahon's Fangraph page, like, wow, has this guy ever been good?
No. At Coors Field of all places, he hasn't been able to hit. Like, what makes you think he's going to suddenly figure it out in the Bronx?
Well, he's got the short porch. Let's see if he turns into a short porch legend.
We'll see. And I know I've complained about that short porch before. I'm not going to belabor that point anymore, but
it's short for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yeah, that's my ultimate prediction. I think they are going to get a bat of some kind. They do need to lengthen their bench, and I do think they'll do it. Not exactly sure what area they end up doing that in. If I had to offer a prediction, I do not think it's going to be Eugenio Suarez coming to Chicago. I think they're going to go out and get a cost-controlled starting pitcher. I think that is going to be the big acquisition they make before Thursday. What about you?
Well, cost-controlled starting pitcher and, like we talked about, one more big bullpen arm.
So you think
at least
like a closer level, right? Like you're not talking about just some dude. You're talking about like one of these closers we've mentioned.
Yeah, someone who can come in and close on the days when Palencia is resting. And, and again, like you said, play mix and match. I mean, what would be optimal would be to get a lefty.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that'd be great.
That way you got Palencia, depending on who the last three outs are in the ninth, you either send Palencia or a lefty out there.
Mm-hmm. Do you worry about lack of balance in the rotation if you go out and get a MacKenzie Gore? I personally don't.
No.
You figure that crap out, honestly.
The thing with the starting pitcher is the starting pitcher is the only baseball's the only sport where you run a different starting lineup out every single day. Yeah. And the one difference is always the starting pitcher. Mm-hmm. So it's not as if having let's say Gore comes in. So now you've got Boyd, you got Shota, you got Gore, and then next year you got Steele.
Mm-hmm.
All in that rotation, all left-handed. I don't think that it's going to be that big an issue because every day, first of all, they're all different types of pitchers.
That is also accurate.
So it's not like you're rolling out four of the same guy. Like they had that one year where they went out and they got Zach Davies and you had Alec Mills. So it's like, oh my God, they're going to roll with an all Kyle Hendricks rotation, and that won't work because you can't have all soft tossing right-handed pitchers.
Damned if they didn't try, though. The less I think about the Zach Davies era with the Chicago Cubs, the better, Frank. I do not like talking about that time frame for that team.
Yeah.
I still miss you, Darvish, for the record.
Oh, me too. Especially because I lived like 2 blocks from him.
Yeah, he seems like a really cool dude.
Yeah, like you I was doing some part-time work at Home Depot, and there's Yu Darvish.
Did anyone else recognize him?
There aren't a lot of 6'7" Japanese guys walking around Evanston.
That is very fair. I'm sure somebody would have been able to put 2 and 2 together. Although they might have thought at 6'7" that he played for the Bulls.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but Yu Darvish. Nobody looks like Yu Darvish except Yu Darvish.
That's damn right, man. That's a good way of phrasing that, and a good way to end this podcast episode. Frank, always great talking with you, man. I know we have a big trade deadline coming up for the Cubs. We've got this 3-game series against Milwaukee. We're going to have so much to talk about, but guess what, everybody? We're doing a special midweek episode after the trade deadline. You are going to get subjected to our bad opinions and takes a whole 3 days sooner. So hopefully you guys are ready for that. Hopefully Claire is ready to deal with our nonsense again in that time frame. And we will talk to you guys on Thursday on the Home Runs and Handshakes podcast.